What if I told you the alternative rock revolution didn't start with Nirvana or Red Hot Chili Peppers, but way earlier? The seeds of grunge, indie, and everything that broke the mainstream in the 90s were planted years, even decades earlier. Who were these pioneers, and which songs built the foundation for a whole new way to rock? Stick around because this is 10 groundbreaking songs that gave birth to alternative rock. Number 1, Pixies, Where Is My Mind? Few songs have a legacy as immense as this one. With Where Is My Mind, the Pixies from Boston created a track that was surreal, unhinged, and impossibly catchy. The song's inspiration was as bizarre as its lyrics. Frontman Black Francis wrote it after a trip to the Caribbean, where he was mesmerized by small fish relentlessly chasing him while he was scuba diving. This surreal image of being swimming in the Caribbean, while his feet are in the air and head is on the ground, became the core of the song's strange, dreamlike narrative. The true innovation here is the legendary loud, quiet, loud structure. The verses are sparse and quiet, carried by Joey Santiago's clean guitar line and Kim Deal's ethereal backing vocals. Then, the chorus explodes. Francis unleashes his signature blood-curdling scream over a wall of distorted guitars and frantic drumming. This sudden, jarring shift in dynamics was revolutionary. It created a sense of tension and release that was incredibly powerful and addictive. Kurt Cobain of Nirvana would later admit that when he wrote Smells Like Teen Spirit, he was basically trying to rip off the Pixies. That loud, quiet, loud formula became the definitive sound of the 90s grunge explosion. Where Is My Mind wasn't a hit when it was released, but it's one of the most important blueprints in rock history. Number 2, The Smiths, How Soon Is Now? Some riffs are just riffs. This one is an entire atmosphere. How Soon Is Now was a world you could get lost in. It became an anthem for every lonely, misunderstood soul who felt like they didn't belong, and it was built around a sound that no one had ever heard before. Guitarist Johnny Marr was trying to emulate the swampy, vibrato, heavy guitar of Bo Diddley, but he wanted it to sound more intense, like a chemical hell. Working with producer John Porter, he ran his guitar through 4 separate amplifiers, each with a tremolo effect pulsing at a slightly different speed. The result was that iconic, shimmering wave of sound that defines the track. The song's structure was radical. It's over 6 minutes long, built on a hypnotic 2-chord groove, and punctuated by Marr's searing slide guitar wails. Over this, Morrissey delivered one of his most poignant and quotable lyrics, a dramatic monologue of social alienation and longing. How Soon Is Now proved that alternative music could be both musically ambitious and emotionally profound. It became a cornerstone of 80s indie and a beacon for countless artists who wanted to create music that was as smart and sensitive as it was powerful. Number 3, Joy Division's Love Will Tear Us Apart. Out of the industrial gloom of Manchester, England, came a sound that was cold, beautiful, and heartbreakingly honest. Love Will Tear Us Apart wasn't just a song, it was a confession. Written by frontman Ian Curtis, the lyrics documented the disintegration of his marriage and his own internal struggles, released just a month before his tragic death. The song's power lies in its haunting contradictions. Curtis delivered his bleak personal lyrics with a detached baritone vocal, while the band crafted a sound that was surprisingly melodic. Peter Hook's high-register lyrical bass line acts as a lead instrument, a signature that would define the post-punk sound. Meanwhile, Bernard Sumner's synth melody, played on an ARP Omni 2, provided the unforgettable elegiac hook that gives the song its timeless, tragic quality. This was a major evolution from the raw fury of punk. Joy Division proved that rock music could be introspective, atmospheric, and emotionally devastating without losing its edge. Producer Martin Hannett's spacious, echo-laden production made the band sound like they were playing in a vast, empty cathedral, creating a sense of isolation that perfectly matched the song's theme. Love Will Tear Us Apart became the anthem for a generation of outsiders. It laid the groundwork for goth rock, synth pop, and the emotionally complex indie rock of bands like The Cure, Interpol, and The National. It was the moment punk grew up and discovered a new kind of darkness. Number 4, The Cure, A Forest. Some songs feel like a place. A forest is one of them. With this track, The Cure crafted a chilling, immersive soundscape. The song was born from a recurring nightmare that haunted frontman Robert Smith. In it, he was lost in the woods, running towards a voice that was calling his name, only to find nothing there again and again. He wanted the music to capture that feeling of mounting dread and inevitable disappointment. He famously instructed the band to play as if they were lost in a forest, and you can hear that sense of desperation in every note. A Forest was a masterclass in atmosphere. It's built on a hypnotic 3-note bass line from Simon Gallup, which provides the relentless, pulsing heart of the track. Over this, Smith's guitar creates textures rather than riffs. The song's long instrumental build-up, which takes up nearly half its runtime, was a bold move that defied pop conventions and created an almost unbearable tension before Smith's final desperate cry of "again and again and again." This track was a landmark. Its dark, atmospheric, and effects-laden sound defined The Cure's imperial phase and laid the foundation for decades of alternative and gothic rock. Number 5, The Stooges, I Wanna Be Your Dog. Some songs whisper. This one spits and snarls. I Wanna Be Your Dog was a primal scream from the heart of Detroit, a city known for horsepower and industry. The Stooges, led by the untamable Iggy Pop, captured that raw energy and unleashed it in 3 minutes of glorious, distorted noise. The song's legendary riff wasn't born from complex theory. It was pure, simple aggression. Guitarist Ron Ashton hammered out a gut-punch riff while the entire song is famously driven by a single pounding piano note played by producer John Cale, adding a layer of hypnotic menace. The anecdote goes that Cale wanted to capture the sound of a jet engine taking off, and he absolutely succeeded. This track was a masterclass in sonic violence. Ashton's guitar, drenched in fuzz, sounded less like an instrument and more like a weapon. Dave Alexander's thudding bass and Scott Asheton's caveman drums provided a foundation of brute force, all while Iggy Pop's desperate, snarling vocals blurred the line between passion and psychosis. I Wanna Be Your Dog became a sacred text for punk, grunge, and noise rock. Its minimalist power and raw, unhinged performance showed generations of musicians that you didn't need polish to be powerful. You just need an attitude. Number 6, REM. Radio Free Europe. This is the sound of the American underground kicking down the door. Before REM, indie rock was a scattered collection of scenes. After Radio Free Europe, it was a movement. Recorded for just $600 for the local Hibtone label in Athens, Georgia, this single became a sensation on college radio, the only place you could hear something so defiantly different. The song's magic was in its mystery. Frontman Michael Stipe's vocals were famously murky and indecipherable, a deliberate choice he later called mumbling. This forced listeners to focus on the music itself. Peter Buck's iconic, jangly Rickenbacker guitar, Mike Mills's propulsive and melodic bass line, and Bill Berry's energetic drumming. It was a sound that was both classic and completely new. Radio Free Europe's success proved that a band could build a career on their own terms, relying on college radio airplay and constant touring instead of major label support. This DIY ethos became the central pillar of the American alternative scene throughout the 80s. REM didn't just write a song, they created a business model. Its jangle pop sound and enigmatic lyrics inspired countless bands, from The Replacements to Pavement conquering the alternative rock scene. Number 7, The Velvet Underground's I'm Waiting for the Man. It started with a dose of brutal reality. While the world was dreaming of flower power, Lou Reed was writing about scoring heroin on a Harlem street corner. I'm Waiting for the Man was the complete antithesis of the 60s peace and love dream. Reed, a Syracuse University dropout mentored by the poet Delmore Schwartz, channeled his first-hand observations of New York's gritty underbelly into a song that was stark, unnerving, and utterly real. The music itself was a deliberate rejection of slick production. John Cale's pounding proto-punk piano, Sterling Morrison's chugging rhythm guitar, and Maureen Tucker's primal stand-up drumming created a raw, driving sound that felt more like a runaway train than a rock song. It was confrontational, lo-fi, and completely unapologetic. The Velvet Underground's debut album sold poorly, but as Brian Eno famously said, "Everyone who bought one of those 30,000 copies started a band. I'm Waiting for the Man" was the blueprint. Its lyrical realism and raw sonic texture laid the groundwork for punk rock, post-punk, and the entire ethos of alternative rock. Without it, the revolution might never have started. Number 8. Sonic Youth, Age Riot. This isn't just a song, it's a statement of purpose. Age Riot, the opener to Sonic Youth's legendary album Daydream Nation, is the ultimate art rock anthem. It's a 7-minute epic that starts with a whisper and builds into a glorious storm of noise and feedback. The New York-based band was known for their radical experimentation, particularly their use of dozens of unconventionally tuned guitars. For Age Riot, they crafted a sonic journey. The song begins with a hazy spoken-word intro from bassist Kim Gordon before shifting into a slow-burn build led by Thurston Moore's iconic chiming guitar riff. Moore revealed the lyric, "It's a teenage riot in a public station," was inspired by an interview with Dinosaur Jr. S.J. Maskus, imagining him as an alternate reality president who could lead a cultural rebellion. Sonic Youth takes their time, letting the tension build for nearly 3 minutes before the song erupts into a full-throttle rock jam. The interplay between Moore and Lee Ronaldo's guitars, weaving together dissonant chords, harmonic feedback, and brilliant melodies, created a sound that was chaotic yet beautifully orchestrated. Age Riot became the defining anthem of late 80s indie rock. It was the sound of a generation that was too smart for pop and too creative for punk, and it set the stage for the alternative nation to come. Number 9. Fugazi, Waiting Room. Waiting Room is the opening track on Fugazi's debut, and it perfectly encapsulates the band's fierce independence, political conviction, and groundbreaking sound. It was the anthem for a scene built on principle. Hailing from the Washington, D.C. hardcore scene, Fugazi was founded on a radical DIY ethos. They ran their own label, Discord Records, booked their own tours, charged only $5 for shows, and refused to sell merchandise. Waiting Room was the sonic embodiment of that philosophy, raw, powerful, and completely uncompromising. The song's iconic dub-influenced bass line from Joe Lally was unlike anything in punk or hardcore at the time, giving the track a deep, infectious groove. The song's power comes from its incredible tension and release. The sparse, groovy verses led by Lally's bass and Guy Picciotto's anxious vocals build a sense of anticipation, a patient boy waiting for something to happen. Then the chorus explodes with Ian MacKay's ferocious guitar chords and barked vocals. It's a coiled spring of a song that finally snaps. Fugazi's blend of punk energy, dub rhythms, and funk grooves created a new genre, post-hardcore. Waiting Room inspired thousands of bands not only with its sound, but with its ethics. Number 10, Husker Du, Makes No Sense at All. What happens when you take the blistering speed of hardcore punk and inject it with unforgettable, pop-friendly melodies? You get Husker Du. And with Makes No Sense at All, they perfected a formula that would become the very essence of 90s alternative rock. Hailing from Minneapolis, the trio of Bob Mould, Grant Hart, and Greg Norton had spent years as one of America's fastest and loudest hardcore bands. But they were getting bored. As Mould himself admitted, he was growing tired of the macho, political hardcore scene. He wanted to write about more personal themes, and he wanted to write hooks. This song from their landmark album Flip Your Wig was the perfect fusion. A 2-minute blast of punk rock fury with a chorus so catchy it could have been on top 40 radio. The innovation was in the balance. Mold's buzzsaw guitar and frantic vocals provided the raw, aggressive energy, while Hart and Norton laid down a rhythm section. But underneath all that noise was a brilliant, instantly hummable melody. It was the sound of rage meeting pop sensibility. This fusion of noise and melody was revolutionary. It directly paved the way for bands like Nirvana, the Foo Fighters, and Green Day. Husker Du proved that you could be fast, loud, and angry while still writing a great pop song. It made no sense, and yet it made perfect sense. And there you have it, 10 songs that broke the mold and built a new one. From the streets of New York to the basements of D.C., these tracks were the sparks that lit the fire of the alternative revolution. Some became anthems, others remained cult classics, but all of them changed the rules. Which of these songs do you think had the biggest impact? And are there any other groundbreaking tracks that you think belong on this list? Let us know down in the comments. If you love diving deep into rock history, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another story. And if you're hungry for more, check out our video on how 1969 became rock's most iconic and tragic year. Until next time, keep rocking and keep talking retro.